Narcissus, may I ask a question that I think our audience will ask? For instance, a person played with those Ouija boards or did some magic in the cemetery or maybe called for some spirits or is practicing lucid dreams or whatever. So the person decides to stop that practice, but there is a thought, maybe I'm possessed now, maybe I need some cleaning. What would you recommend as step number one, for instance?
Well, first of all, I recommend that they never engage in such games. It's like playing with fire in a summer forest. Don't do that. It's very dangerous. Now, in case you took the decision to stop all this engagement, how do you discover if you are possessed? There is not a single trick to this. I have devised a scale which is 52 questions, where the higher the score, the more possible it is. It's always possible. There is no certainty in these things. The only possible way to figure out if somebody is possessed, and again, then there are exceptions, is to put them into trance. If you put them into trance, it is easy to find and figure out whether they are possessed. But you see, this flirting with, trying to communicate with the dead people is as old as humans are. Mm-hmm. But the first written records come from Egypt, ancient Egypt, and from Greece. And the Assyrians and the Babylonians must have had such practices way before, but the best recorded cases are in Greece, actually. And in Greece, we had the so-called necromancies. The necromancies were manteums where people would go there to communicate with their dead people. Mm-hmm. Now, we had 3 big major mandeums in Delphi, Dodoni, and Didyma. But these were only the Pythia with Apollo, okay? And there the state or the king of a state would go and ask, what should I do with this? What should I do with the other? The people were going to the oniromandeums, which means the mandeums of the dreams, the dream mandeums, and there were 4 mandeums for the dead. Now, you wouldn't go there because you wanted to communicate with your dead mother who is 100 years old. Nobody would go there for that. They only went there for the people who had severe, violent death and premature death. Because they knew that the soul is certainly trapped in the planes, lower astral planes, and it couldn't move. So they wanted to go there and establish a communication. Now, of course, materialist archaeology is saying that the priests there were faking things so that people would imagine that they were seeing their dead relatives. But as is everything wrong with these people, the materialists, they have a wrong understanding. The truth is that we know that if a person is looking at the surface of still water in a very dark room with just one light, a candle light open, they can see things. And in the necromancies of Greece, there were 4. 1 in southern Italy, 2 in the mainland of Greece as it is of today, and 1 in very close to Pamukkale in Turkey. So those were the 4 necromandeums, and the people would resort there. I've been to 2 of them, And it's fascinating to get into there because there is no sound. They have the best, the scientists went there a few years ago and they counted the sound, and the best studio in the world doesn't have such a sound reaction. You think you have a negative sound. So that lack of sound with the combination of total darkness allows images to come up. Raymond Moody is probably very well known for, he was the one who coined the term near-death experience. In his home in Alabama, he made a necromandium, exact replica of antiquity. He took his mill, he had a water mill, and he created as necromandium, and 54% of his patients have had a very intense communication with their dead relatives, and their life changed after that. Because let's say if some mother lost her son and suddenly he's her son and has a strong touch with that son, then she's relieved of the majority of her pain. And she knows now that her son is in another plane, and she doesn't really worry, and she goes on with her life. The point is that a Westerner, an American psychiatrist, repeated the conditions that were done in the ancient mandiums, and it was successful. So the challenge is to the other psychiatrists to do the same thing. Now, if you were going to do that in your home, there is what we call the black mirror, okay? The black mirror is a mirror that actually you don't see really your image into that. But if you have conditions where darkness is around, you may communicate with a spirit. I have done that in a seminar in Virginia, and it was a very successful experience for many of the attendants. So I wouldn't suggest that, though, to an uninitiated person who doesn't know the dangers. If you do not know the dangers of possession, don't play these games. Don't engage. Please don't engage with these things. Okay?
And then, if you have a chance, go to an experienced person for help.
Yes. Qualified therapist who is able to help you in this. One good thing was really to start studying and understanding the dangers that are involved in these things. Knowledge, cognition is power. And if you have the knowledge of how to work around these difficult areas, because it's terra incognita, it's unknown land for most of us, and you need to have a chart. You need to have a chart how to move around and a compass to show you where to go. Otherwise, you may get lost and you may carry with you several entities. Some cases, we have a joke here in our profession, you probably know it, Diana. We say, today I had a client, he was a car, which means 3 to 4 passengers. And the other day, I had a bus. Which means more than 20 attachments. And one day I was in a conference I think it was in the Netherlands, and they said, today I had an airplane.
Too many.
Yeah, too many. So sometimes it's never ending. To such an extent that you cannot believe that that person is changing face, tone of voice, way of moving, way of talking. Everything is changed in matters of seconds. You finish with that one, you go to the next. One is male, the other is female, the other is gay, and it's confusing.
Right.
So there are many layers there.
Yeah. Hearing you now, I'm just thinking, do you as a regression therapist, do you have normal clients, like a classical regression? Is that possible?
Yeah, I do have,
Yeah,
yes, of course. Very rare, but I do. I had a very impressive case of a person last week, actually, in Athens. I was so impressed by this guy. I had a long time to have such a nice session, because this person was so polite, so easygoing, and so his profession is very demanding. He is in the business of new information and computers and new technologies, at the top big technologies of the day. He's a technician. So when he came to me, and I asked them to fill an online interview, so I have an image why they are coming. I couldn't understand why he was coming to me, because he didn't say the reason he was coming. So I was taken by surprise, because it took him half an hour to explain to me that, listen, Nasos, what you are going to hear now is very strange, and I don't tell this, and I feel very embarrassed, and I really have difficulty to sharing this with you, but I have the impression that I am the reincarnation of another person. And I say, now, you came to the guy who is with the reincarnation thing. Why are you embarrassed? He was very, very modest. He wouldn't say it. Anyway, he saw a dream 10 years ago. And in that dream, he saw his death and how he was killed. And he was an officer in the Civil War of the Americans. And he was an officer of the Northern Americans, you know, the Union. And he saw his death, and then he started seeing scenes after his dream and thinking in English. Of course, he was taught English, but he was speaking English in his everyday life, and things were coming up to him. First of all, the name came of the specific individual, and he was a brigadier, and he was in the cavalry. Now, the strange thing about it is that he knew that he had a male horse, and the name of the horse was Hector. Okay? By the way, the name of the person, the persona, is Elon Farnsworth. And he Googled and he found that guy, and he saw the resemblance in the face. That they look alike, that's true. But the guy now is 52, while he was killed at 26. Okay. Now, how could he be a brigadier, a very high rank in the military? He became a brigadier because he made a very good fight, and they gave him 3 ranks in one day. And he was only for 4 days a brigadier, and then he was killed. Oh. Now, the funny thing is that he found a historian in Pennsylvania who studied the specific battle. And he knew about Elon Farnsworth. And he sends him an email, and he says, would you happen to know if the horse of Elon was named Hector? And the response from the historian is, of course, that was the name of that. But how would you know? Because I've never written that in the book. Now, in the search, he found that all the horses in the cavalry were female. And the reason they are female, because they have to be more obedient to the person who is above them. But for one reason or another, he had a male horse. Now, this is impossible to know beforehand. So I was really shocked by this. And I said, here we have evidence. First of all, the facial resemblance. Then we have Hector. Then he starts giving other informations about the bullets, about the weapons, about all these things. That was shocking, to say the least, because it took him 10 years to discover all these things, and they were coming on their own, and then he would search for this. Mm-hmm. So I put him to, I started the regression with him, and he went. He saw the fights, different fights from the ones he had seen in his dreams, and he went to the moment of his death. I'm saying this now fast. And then he sees that he's dead and he's in spirit form, and he is in a cabin, and there's a girl with a candle lit in front of her, and she is waiting for him to return. She doesn't know he's dead. Mm-hmm. And he's there trying to show himself, and she's not seeing him. She's not sensing him. So he's sad, he's crying now in the session. He's really, really, really crying. And about 10 minutes after this realization, after this feeling, he realizes one thing. He has two twin daughters. The second one, the small one, is that woman who was waiting for him at the cabin. Oh, yeah. Now, and in that moment of that realization, we have another 15 minutes of crying. Now, why am I saying this? Because this has the benefit of a spontaneous recollection on his own through two dreams, one 10 years ago and one 4 years ago. It has, from this time now, the gradual verification of little small things that he would never be in a position to know. Mm-hmm. For instance, his village in Illinois came. He saw in the session that he was working in a mine before he went to the military, in a mine in Illinois. And now it's time for us to verify if in historical records we know if he has done that or not. Now imagine if that comes up into the picture. So then this guy now has to recuperate all these things that have happened to him, integrate them, and move on. Because he came to a stalemate with all this. Mm-hmm. He resigned from his work. It was that possession actually by his former incarnation, mm-hmm. It acted as a possession, because I checked for possession, and this soul entered into the embryo during the conception. So we saw the moment of conception, and he was there. But he acts as if he is the possession of the current personality. Mm-hmm. So we have to put at rest Elon Farnsworth, and we have to put him into sleep and allow the new personality to unfold himself furthermore. Because allowing, that's a danger when we do a regression. I remember in Corfu, I hypnotized a person, and it seems to me, because I did a lot of work on researching on this, that he is the Emperor Justinian. Okay, Justinian is the longest emperor of the Byzantine Empire. Now, all the information he gave, I was able to establish later on. And I went to the university library and I checked every detail that I could find, and he must have been the guy. But now this guy is a dentician. He makes teeth.
Okay, dentist.
Yeah, not a dentist. He makes the, you know,
Okay.
the extras that we put on our teeth. And I say, how could, he says now, okay, I was an emperor, I was doing this and that, and now I am fixing
what a difference, huh?
How can I live with this? It was a problem for him, a severe problem, because he felt like homesick. So there are dangers involved in regression. You may have, now how can I go on living by making teeth for other people who don't have teeth? I was the emperor. I mean, I was the power, prestige. Now what? It's a dilemma. You know, you may run into such problems. Another guy, you know, was Jacques de Molay. I don't know if you have heard of Jacques de Molay. They were burned at stake in the Sicuana River.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were thought as Masons and against Christianity, and they were sentenced to death. Now, Jacques de Molay cursed Prince Philip to die, and he died within a year, and he cursed everyone who was responsible for this decision, and everybody died. But he was burned at stake, and I had to take him out of the session before the conclusion of the session because he was burning, he was screaming, and all the complex apartment was hearing him. And guess what? The next day, he has severe burns all over his, from this part and on. He went to the hospital and he had to be treated as if he had real damage done to him. And of course, I'm saying this not to scare people, but to warn them that even a skilled and efficient therapist like myself can make mistakes. Because I should not have allowed him to wake up. I should have let him go through the process and let this thing cool off. So there are dangers involved. When you do such things, there are real things that can happen. Okay? A burn, a third degree burn that gets you to the hospital and then you need laser therapy is something which is, you can touch it.
Good to know,
Yeah.
Thank you. And I think you now mentioned something like fake possession, is it?
Yes. Well, fake possession, we call it when we have a personality from another, let's say Justinian is taking over now and he pretends that he is an emperor and he does not allow the other guy to work. So then we have a pseudo possession, which is not a real possession, but it is a possession of an awakened persona of our former lives.
And can that be done spontaneously somehow, without any regression?
Yes, it could be done. Sometimes triggers in life, events in life work as triggers which ignite something that was in a latent position and in a dormant mode. And all of a sudden, this specific experience wakes up a persona from of your former lives, You know, you have a collection of former lives, and suddenly one becomes alive because of this, and it comes there and demands attention. Then you have to refer to a specialist to give the attention to this persona, and then tell him, now it's not your turn now, you have done your job, go back to sleep now and let us continue with our life.